This is Tim from Uniform, and in this video we will be discussing data types. If you want to connect external sources to your uniform design system components, you need to use data types, and in this video I'll show you two of them. The first one is using a pre-built integration, let's say into Contentful, a CMS integration. Or what you can also do is add any URL to the system that actually has an output for a REST API. Something legacy, something you've built yourself, and then make that into a data type as well. So let's start with the Contentful one. So we go to Contentful for the integration, and then we now add it to Uniform. So Uniform knows, hey, this will be a data source that I can get a type from. So in this case, a type could be a product or a blog post or whatever you have content modeled inside the CMS. So let's add a data type for call to actions. That's what's in my database. So first, before we can select the call to action, we need the source. And the source here is the space ID and your API tokens, things like that. So let me copy that to over here. And it's done this way because now what you can do is you can add another source to another space with another user account. And you can add 20 spaces if you want. Probably don't do that, but you can. The idea is that this is extremely flexible. So now that we know what the source is, we need to actually see what will we query. Will we get assets, a query into the system to just return whatever you search for, or a single entry or multiple entries where you select the ones you want. Right now I want one CTA to connect to one hero component. And so let's find our call to action. Let's find the field that has the image so it looks nice in the uniform interface. And let's go in a depth of 2 because maybe there's connected images elsewhere inside the CMS, so it finds more. And then whatever field we use to search in for the title if you wanted to select it. And then we call this call to actions. So what we can do is actually hit the save and test. So it already queries for you. And you say, okay, let's see what comes out here. So this is the API result from Contentful. And so you can see the title, there's the text, there's the image data, and this can now be attached to components in Uniform. If you want to go deep on how that works, there will be other videos in this series to show you. All right, so this is the pre-built integration. Now let's add an API that I might build myself for my articles that queries another system, but I've built that endpoint myself. So let's add another data type. And in this case, it's going to be an HTTP request, and it's going to my own website. To my API. And this is an open API because it's going to be a very simple query here. So this is my API as my source. And what I want is my articles. And I want articles for my username for dev.to because that's what I'm using as my blogging platform. I could actually add another username here to get different articles. And so what you can do is make a variable that is called username. And you can actually add a default value because for me this is always Tim Bennix. Of course, I could have hard-coded this in the API, but that's not really very flexible. And I want a specific per page count to know how many to get back. Oh, not username, but a new one. And let's get 3 by default. So now this is the API call that it's going to be doing. And so we can, have a little test here. Let's fetch this data and see what comes out. Well, in the result here, you have the 3 latest articles that I have posted. So now these data that's in here, I can attach them to a list of components in Uniform. So these are the 2 types that I wanted to show you today, which you can literally grab any data that is open, put it here, and start using it in Uniform. So for the people who wanted to know what data types are, you can stop the video now, you're good to go. But I will make it a bit longer and actually show you how to assign these two components in Uniform, just to give you a bit of a feeling of how that works. So let's actually go to the home page. And this is the Uniform component starter kit that makes you a base page with a bunch of components. And so if the data lives in Uniform, I can actually do things like this. I can actually type anything I want. So I can keep it like this, hit save, use Uniform's kind of CMS features and run with it. But what I want to do is that this hero here is actually a CTA to a product, for example. Well, I have a bunch of CTAs from Contentful. So what I can do is I can click on this little icon here and say, connect this to an external source. Well, I have Contentful CTAs here. Well, let's connect it. And let's see what we have. So let's use the fold away frother. And so now that's selected, you can actually then say, okay, well, which field that comes out of this API response can we then use for the title? Well, there's a title here. Let's add. There you go. This is now a dynamic field to that API resource. How about we do the same for the description? There we go. And let's do the same for the image. And what you'll see now is that this image doesn't actually fit because of the content that I have. Luckily, the Uniform Starter Kit has a bunch of different options for images, right? And so the interesting bit here is that some of these fields are now dynamically connected to something in a CMS. But this one I can hardcode if I want. And maybe my button I can also hardcode. Oh. This can also be connected to anything that you have. And so this is how I now connected this data type for a call to action to my hero. What you can also do is grab this component and make a pattern out of it for specific different kind of things that you connect to it. And then for content editors, they just have to choose a specific one, put it on, so they don't have to go through all these steps. If you want to know how patterns work, there will be another video in this series that explains all of that. So now we also have my articles. And you see there's these three cards here. Well, these look perfect for my blog post articles. So let's actually make these dynamic. And so what I'm going to do, there's actually a container here for the featured components. Well, let's first call these latest articles. And of course, this kind of content is the best to keep in uniform because this is not coming from a CMS. That would be out of context in a CMS. So that lives here. But let's remove these cards because they are now actually hard-coded. The connection to my latest articles, that's what makes this very interesting, right? So what you can do is actually add a loop that loops over those three items. And if you want to know more about loops, there will be another video in this series that dives a bit deeper. So I'll just quickly select a new resource, which are my articles, and I want 3 of them. And you see there's already pre-filled, which is very nice. So now I have now connected my result of these 3 items to this loop. And so whatever information is in there, it can loop over them. And so what I do now, I'm adding a card. And I can say, okay, so the title for this card will be the title of my looped item. The description will be the description. And now let's grab the image. And maybe the badge should be the date. This is not going to look super great, but you get the gist. And so the badge style, let's see, what do we have? And so essentially, we have now created a dynamic list of my latest 3 articles, the date, the title, the description. And if this list now changes, this will change on your web page as well. And this is a very powerful way of very easily generating dynamic data into Uniform. Because you as a content editor, you don't really know where this is coming from and who cares? That's what makes this great. And again, you can make this into a pattern for this component. So a content editor that doesn't want to look at like all these JSON things here can just select, these are my latest articles. But you can make another pattern that says, these are my latest products, or this is a search result for something. And then they can just choose it. So again, if you want to know about patterns, there's another video in this series that explains them. Thank you for watching.